Through the Darkest of Times, developed by Paintbucket Studios in 2020, puts the player in the shoes of an underground resistance group carrying out covert operations against the Nazi regime. The game takes the player through different stages of Adolf Hitler's governship, from his rise of power to the height of his power, to the war with the Allies, and finally the downfall of his regime. Through the Darkest of Times plays like a strategy game with chance elements. The main interface is a map of the city of Berlin, where the player can choose to undertake various missions, such as printing and handing out illegal pamphlets, recruiting new members, or provoking strikes among workers. The members of the resistance group are randomly generated and encountered and have different traits, with accompanying strengths and weaknesses, which makes them more or less likely to succeed at their missions. For example, a communist member will have a higher chance of talking factory workers into starting a strike, while a sneaky member will have a higher chance of spying on SS activity. Aside from the strategy element, the game also contains interactive cutscenes with role-playing elements. These cutscenes break up the gameplay and introduce world-building elements, in which the player must make certain choices. Confront the SS officer harassing a citizen or hide, for example.
From a technical perspective, the game ran well during testing with no issues. The game's visual quality is cartoonish with a hand-drawn art style, but does not evoke a cheerful mood, as the colors are very drab. Tones of grey and brown dominate the color palette. This fits the game's theme very well of living under the Nazi regime, and is consistent throughout the whole game. The audio style fits the theme as well, featuring many old-timey sound effects such as old-fashioned German music playing in the group's hideout.
As Through the Darkest of Times is a historical simulator, albeit with fictional but realistic characters, the main body of the learning content is integrated into the plot and gameplay itself. The developers aim to show the struggle and hardships of those who stood up to the Nazi regime, and do this through world-building elements, the cutscenes, but also through the gameplay itself. Just as the SS posed a threat to the German citizens who opposed them, they are also the main threat to the fictional resistance group in the game. A game of chance, in which the player must carry out operations without getting arrested or killed by the SS, shapes the game's win-loss conditions. As mentioned already, the strategic gameplay is broken up by interactive cutscenes, which introduce more characters and events, for example Kristallnacht. These two gameplay elements together really help shape the world of Through the Darkest of Times, accompanied by the dreary art style, setting the tone for a hopeful yet futile effort to fight back against the Nazi regime for everyday citizens.
In terms of ethics, inclusion, equity, and diversity, Through the Darkest of Times scores quite well. The player's resistance group can consist of both men and women. Each member is randomly generated with different traits and views. While every member of the group is avidly opposed to the Nazi regime, their reasons for doing so are different. Some are communists, some are Catholic conservatives, etc. Interactive cutscenes also show, through fictional character based on real events, the horrors minority groups had to endure under the Nazi regime. For example, Jewish people and Roma people. The game also scores well in the accessibility and scale-up potential department. The game at its core has a very simple design and is available on a very wide range of devices. It is easy to be played with simple controls. Furthermore, the game's voice parts are available in both English and German, while the interface offers more language options. At €15 for a 5 to 6 hours playing experience, the game is a little bit steep, but still within reasonable pricing. Mobile, the game costs €8. In terms of scale-up potential, while the game is set within Berlin, oppressed people living under a regime is sadly not limited to Nazi Germany. Showing the struggle of those protesting and fighting against an oppressive regime can be scaled up to many different scenarios.
All in all, Through the Darkest of Times as a complete package does a very good job at bringing the struggles of those who stood up to the Nazi regime close to the player's heart. Seamless integration of the learning content into the gameplay, along with the complementation of dreary hand-drawn art style and interactive cutscenes, make for a very memorable experience. With these things in mind, we give Through the Darkest of Times 23 out of 25 Mind Game stars. As always, for a detailed breakdown of our scoring, click the link down below. Until next time.